Welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. The future belongs to builders. Together, we explore topics of interest to legal innovators. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They're an act of courage. Want to get the most from this conversation? Ask questions, comment, like, follow, say hello. In short, engage. Lastly, have fun. Shaping the future of law requires significant effort, but finding joy in the process is essential. Let's begin. Here's your host, Olga Mack.
Well, hello everyone. It's good to see you all. As you know, I'd like the future of law to be a little bit brighter and a little bit more inclusive, or a lot more inclusive, and a whole lot more exciting. So to this end, I have this series where I talk to builders because I strongly believe if you don't like the world around you the way you found it, you must roll up your sleeves and rebuild it and redo it and do it better. And I'm really excited to have a conversation today with my friend Tom, who's been rolling up his sleeves, serving community, building the future of law for a while. He inspires me every time I open LinkedIn. And I am really excited to welcome him to this No to My Legal Self stage. Tom, for those people who somehow manage not to see you in the hallways of LinkedIn, not sure how, but if that happened to them, please introduce yourself.
Well, first off, hey Olga, thank you so much for having me on today. So my name's Tom Martin. I'm the CEO and founder of LawDroid, and I've been plugging away at this for 8 years. I'm also the co-founder of the American Legal Technology Awards, where we honor those that are making a difference in law and innovation.
So cool. Tell us a little bit more about awards. This has been duped as Oscars of something really exciting. I don't want to do it injustice. So tell us, folks, more about it.
Yeah, so the American Legal Technology Awards is happening this October 6th in Austin, Texas, and it is going to be a location event. It's the Bar Mansion. It's this really gorgeous actual mansion, and yeah, we have 10 categories, some really amazing people over the years. This is going to be our 5th year, and the judges we have are world class. The sponsors we have are amazing, and it's really just a good time, you know, just a nice party, like some people call it, the Legal Tech Prom, you know, but it's a lot of fun.
Oh man, a prom. I haven't gone to my prom. I've never been to a prom, so maybe. Uh, if people want to check out the event and get tickets, where do they go?
Yeah, it's real simple. You go to americanlegaltechnology.com and you could submit a nomination. We have until July 31st for nominations, so there's still almost 2 months, and you can pick up a ticket. And right now it's still an early bird special, so check it out, americanlegaltechnology.com.
Awesome. And tell us about LawDroid. What is that? And how do you eat it?
How do you eat it? So LawDroid, it's at lawdroid.com, and basically over 8 years, we've built a platform where you can easily create AI bots. And so they started off 8 years ago, real simple, you know, like push button simple. But now, you know, we've been layering additional AI on top of it. Obviously in 2022, we added Gen AI, and it's just an amazing thing now. And just recently, we launched AI agents, where you could have these autonomous AI agents doing work for you. And I'm here at the hotel room in San Francisco because I just got off of 2 days at the Legal Innovators California conference, where I pitched LawDroid.
I love that. And if what you're doing is not enough for folks, what have you done to get up in the morning, you know, before and decide to do the awards and the LawDroid adventure and teaching people how to incorporate AI into their law practices to law better?
Well, I think with the awards, it was really just a matter of further knitting together our community, our legal innovation community. It's really a wonderful thing. I think there's so many people that are in it that just want to do positive good in the world as well as innovate. And, we see each other infrequently at conferences, and then it's just for a little bit of time. So we've never had a party together, and that's why, together with Kat Moon and Patrick Palace, we created the award so that we could do that. As far as LawDroid, it started off as solving my own or scratching my own itch because, I'm a solo and small firm attorney, and I created these technological tools to increase my ability to do more with less in my practice. I think solos and smalls especially connect with that. And so using these AI tools, you can essentially amplify your impact. And for anyone that's on a budget or you just want to do more with less, especially in this economy, AI agents are definitely the way to go.
So that theme of doing more with less is sort of underpinning the thesis of your business. And you have this very useful newsletter that you share with anyone really, but a lot of folks who are reading it are solos or small firm leaders. Tell us a little bit more about your dedication to teach the community about AI and how they can access the resources you share in your newsletter.
Well, thank you so much for that, bringing that up. So my newsletter is called LawDroid Manifesto at lawdroidmanifesto.com. And I know there's a lot of coverage about kind of the breathless day-to-day like innovations. So OpenAI did this now and they did that now, or Anthropic's done this. And mine, I guess partly because I'm a philosophy major, it takes a bit of a step back and it kind of puts these different movements into perspective and educates people about different concepts, because I don't want to assume that everyone knows everything in depth. So like one recently was about prompt engineering, about hallucinations. And so you could really get into the meat of it through the newsletter. And I have weekly podcasts with great influencers and experts like yourself, Olga. And also on LawDroid.com, I launched LawDroid University, and I have a 5-part series teaching lawyers about AI. And it's 5 hours of useful information, as well as the AI conference that we had earlier this year.
So cool. Thank you for your service. I thoroughly enjoy your newsletter and everything you do. I am an active reader. LinkedIn suggests that I read your posts every day, so which usually correlates with me actually opening up and reading it. So thank you so much for your services. Let's actually dive into AI a little bit more so that we can kind of talk a little to teach people and professionals, especially lawyers, about kind of how they can incorporate in their practice. And let's start from the beginning. So what is sort of old fashioned, I guess, or a traditional, or let's use a better word, classic AI that has been around for a little while?
I think a classic example, like a product that we had early on that gained traction, that was good old-fashioned AI, which for those who aren't familiar with that term, good old-fashioned AI is like, pick your own adventure buttons. You say yes and it goes down one route. If you say no, it goes down a different route. Conditional logic. So a great application of that that's worked very well and still works is like a lead capture bot that you put on your website. It pops up, has a conversation with people, and then captures their lead information, and you get new business out of it. It's a really great application. And that still works pretty good.
And how is that maybe different from Gen AI applications and what's possible to do with that type of tool?
Yeah, so that type of tool, although it did well in the past, it's quite brittle. So like, as all of us have noticed, if you go to Bank of America in the past or any major company and you ask it a question it doesn't know about, it'll say like, I'm not sure, can you give me more information? And then it goes in this endless loop of that, and you've essentially broken the chatbot, and it's not very helpful. So with Gen AI, what that does is it really builds in this strength, this ability to recover from questions that go sideways. So if a lead is asking a law firm, like if they do some kind of practice area, it'll answer. But if they ask them a question about, I don't know, do they go to lunch and they're not in the office or something, like it'll be able to recover from strange questions and keep people coming down the funnel, which is where you want them to be. So it's much more sturdy in a sense and intelligent. And so that's really added a lot of value because you don't have that broken chatbot experience. Yeah.
So the ability to recover from strange questions and I mean, I want to have that quality too. I mean, it's like the most useful thing in life to be able to recover from strange experiences and questions and whatever life throws at you. So that sounds like a really useful quality for anyone and anything, including a bot. Um, and yet, some people say that Gen AI is overhyped. I'm not sure. Like, what do you think about this? I mean, it sounds like to me this ability to recover is strangely important, and it's hard to overhype it. But what are your thoughts?
I think that, I mean, first of all, the generative AI could do a lot more than what I just described. Obviously, people have seen the applications with legal research and document drafting and many, many different kinds of things, extracting information from documents. As far as overhyped, I think, honestly, I think that people that remark that it's overhyped, they haven't really explored it as much. If they have, I feel that if they had explored it more, they would understand that there's so many applications of it that are quite useful that are not only legal research. I think that there's been, in my mind, there's been anti-hype, like there's been overhyping of hallucinations, for example. Like it's almost become this panic. And what it does is, because it focuses really narrowly on very specific types of legal research, and nobody should be asking ChatGPT, should I cut the red wire or the blue wire? It's not meant for something that is that high stakes.
Wait. This is like we went from law, which is really important, to blue wire and red wire. I mean, I like the way you think, but man, that's a little,
No, but this is the conversation. This is the way people are framing it. Is that it's so crucial, and like, if it is that crucial, then you don't, completely rely on ChatGPT for the answer to that question. But it's very useful for things other than that very narrow legal research question. Like I mentioned, it could help you to have a conversation with leads, and any office is getting hundreds to thousands of inquiries. You can't possibly handle that yourself, or you'd have to hire a small army of people to do it. Having those conversations, which is fairly low risk, you could automate with AI. Or it could be like intake of clients that you have that have retained you, and you need to gather standard information. Again, that's fairly low risk. It's not, providing legal advice, it's gathering information. And to have extra help doing that is very helpful too. Another application is answering phones for you. It could answer your phones, take messages, transfer calls. We could do that right now. And so I think people are losing sight of that.
Yeah, those are important. I recently talked to a friend who is doing SOLA, and she does hire people to answer and collect and all of that. And she had this exact to science how long they should be on the call, long enough to get information, but not so long that they lose time to get another call, and how much information is enough. How much she could go on for days about the science of information collecting and lead generation, and I was just blown away. I mean, it makes sense. I ran a number of businesses now. Your ability to succeed in it really depends on your deep diving, hyper focusing on minute details like that. And it sounds like something like Gen AI could be super helpful, especially now my favorite phrase, ability to recover from strange questions.
Well, it could definitely help with that. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned collection of data, and people are, besides asking strange things, they also share strange things too. And sometimes those strange things personally identifiable private information, and you have various responsibilities with it in various jurisdictions. Also, you as a law firm may have various concerns about security. So anytime you have lots of data, you have sort of by default security, privacy concerns, ability of bad actors to get into the systems, either well, unlawfully, or somehow, because they have superior knowledge and you didn't do something right. Um, so overhype is one concern. Security and privacy is another concern. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important, especially to lawyers. And so some questions that you should be asking of any vendor that you think of working with is how do you handle the information? And if you do use third-party vendors or providers like OpenAI or Anthropic, what is your, what is your contract? What is your agreement with them? And how do they handle the information? Also, to what extent do they use encryption? Basic stuff like, or it's basic now, like HTTPS or an SSL certificate. You need to have that bank grade security in place. And so there's different ways to implement that. It could be encryption in use, like actually as we're using the web, you put that query in, and when it gets submitted, that's encrypted. So if somebody were to intercept it, that means that it will just be a jumble of letters and numbers that they won't be able to decipher. Same thing for when it gets retained in the database of the company that you're working with, the vendor, that it's also encrypted, so that if worst case scenario they get broken into, then it's going to be encrypted information. It's no use to the person that's broken in. These are all measures that are taken. Oh, one last thing is that the agreements that we have with OpenAI and Anthropic and Gemini, Google, is that they never use the data that we're submitting to them for handling for training purposes. So the training purposes part is something to worry about because, and by the way, if you're using ChatGPT, make sure that your settings is set to private so that they are not using your data for training purposes, because it would essentially become part of a public database, and you don't want that to happen. But every agreement that we have is that they will not use it for that purpose, and we don't either.
Okay, let me ask you a practical question. In ChatGPT or Gemini or Anthropic, where do you go to make sure? Do you actually, one, have the choice as an individual as opposed to enterprise account holder? Say you're paying $20 a month. And if so, if you have a choice in any of those providers, how do you actually do that thing where whatever conversations you have do not become part of a training, which is a code word of essentially sharing everything with the rest of the world?
Yeah, so first let me give a little more detail to the training data thing. So the fear that people have is that they put information in and then it goes into this public database, becomes part of the training data, and then some third party somewhere else, New York City, is sitting at their computer typing in OpenAI. The call of their question may bring in, the data that you put into the system, and they actually see it firsthand, like the raw data itself. It's highly, highly unlikely, but it is possible. So that's the fear, and that's the possibility. But you have to make sure that your settings are set appropriately. I could describe it for OpenAI off the top of my head. All of them, you want to have paid accounts. Obviously, they give this option to paid accounts. If you're a free account, well, you're free because they're capturing your data, right? So
you're paying with something, and it's not money, so it has to be data.
Yeah, the old saying is that if it's free, then you're probably the product, right? Yeah. But if you have a paid account with OpenAI for ChatGPT, if you go into settings, where if you look at the little avatar for yourself and you click on that, then it gives you a little gear for settings. Go into that, and they actually changed the wording on it, which is a little tricky. OpenAI has been a little tricky with the wording, because now it says something like improve model for everyone. and then it has the little dip switch off or on, right? It used to say not to use for training purposes, or no training data, and then you would switch it off. That's much clearer. But now the way that they phrased it, you know, if you're a giving person, you think, oh, I want to help everyone out. Like, sure, yeah, that sounds good for me to help everyone out. But people don't realize that it's actually giving away your data. So be careful. One last thing is that I also noticed that when they released a more premium feature, like creating your own custom GPTs, that they made it default to turning on training data if you were to use that feature. So always be sure to double check.
Yeah. So I'm sharing my screen. So if you say you go to settings in my OpenAI and ChatGPT, you go to data control. This is what Tom, you mentioned, improve the model for everyone. You can be a generous person or not, your choice. Allow your what generosity in this case means. Allow your content to be used to train our models, which makes ChatGPT better for you and everyone who uses this. We take steps to protect your privacy. So your choice. There's other things you can manage here as well. But just like with everything else in life, it's useful to understand your settings for sure. Um, Also, you in our conversation, you mentioned the sort of difference between uh, vendors, sort of private services like Quadroid, for example, and various other folks, and kind of more public LLMs like ChatGPT, Gemini, Anthropic. I'm just curious, I'm sure lawyers ask you this all the time. How should I, as a lawyer, think about it? Should I use everything proprietary? Should I, some things could be kind of, what is the position on what should I use? How much due diligence I should do every time I use it in my practice, which may or may not really be for the purposes of legal advice, because in our legal practices, a legal practice includes all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, one thing that I say in almost every single presentation I give, because it's really important, is for lawyers to understand this distinction. On the one hand, using ChatGPT, the consumer-facing product, right, that we just looked at your settings on, versus products that are built on top of that technology. Big difference. If we look at the recent, Stanford study, you saw that, the hallucinations for ChatGPT were like 60 to 70%, whereas for the proprietary vendor stuff, it was like around 20%. Now, that's still not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better. But the thing with the vendors that build on top of the technology, on top of generative AI, is by building on top of it, you can layer in additional safeguards. Safeguards for privacy, safeguards for security, safeguards that use retrieval augmented generation to improve the answers that you get. Not perfect them, they're not perfect, but they're much, much improved compared to the open, ChatGPT usage. And so that distinction is extremely important in making your decision. Due diligence, of course. Read the terms of service. You might even use Gen AI to summarize the terms of service for you, so you don't have to read, hundreds of pages of terms. But it's important to know what you're getting into.
Yeah. So we also let's talk about misuses. Every tool is not for everything. You can theoretically build a building with a spoon, but oh boy, will it take a long time, and it probably will not look that great. So what is the sort of misuses of Gen AI when it comes to legal practice? What are examples?
So there's two things in terms of misuse. One is I think when people have the mindset of using AI as an oracle. It's an oracle, like it's a all pervasive knower of facts, and you think of it that way, and you're asking it all of these specific questions, like for a legal answer, right? And you want a very specific, narrow answer to a very specific question. Um, it doesn't have that much training narrowly within the legal domains that you might be asking about to answer that question properly. So what happens then? Hallucinations is what happens then, because it's trying to fill in the gaps of what you're asking for and provide an answer, because ultimately it does want to please you, but it's relying on what we call its parametric memory. That's the data it was trained on, and it only has data about certain things. And if what you're asking about was not specifically within that data, it won't know the answer to it. So
it's recovering from a strange question in a way.
It is trying to recover from a strange question. The second mistake I see is what I call a naive prompt. A naive prompt is, when people start using the Gen AI tools, and they'll say something like draft lease, and then they expect it to come up with the most perfect lease that they have in their mind because they've done it many times. And if they just say draft lease and it doesn't provide them that perfection, they say, oh, this is horrible, and just want to throw it out the window. And the point is, we still, as lawyers, as human beings, we still have the responsibility to communicate effectively. And if you were to yell across the room to a paralegal or another attorney, draft lease, they'd be like, okay, who's this for? Like, what property are you talking about? Where's it located? What jurisdiction? Like, do we want to allow them to have pets? Like, there's so many questions that would come up that to communicate effectively, you would have to provide that context. It's the same. Think of ChatGPT, think of Gen AI tools as people that you need to guide as well. Because if you do that, it'll be much more effective for you.
Yeah, I find that it does make me a better human, because it gives sort of feedback back when you ask how can I improve, and tell you to do things better. It's really funny this way. Let's talk about legal assistance, because there's a lot of chatter in the community on LinkedIn, in literature about that. What is this, and kind of what is it used for?
When you say legal assistance, are you talking about like legal research assistance or administrative, or what?
Yeah, I mean any of the above. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, for the past year, we've had legal assistants that help with research, like CoCounsel and Harvey, and some others. But those have been, really the big two. As we know, Harvey's been a little surreptitious in what it actually does, and hopefully it'll become more public in terms of people being able to test it and see how it falls in terms of its abilities.
The suspense is too much, Tom. The suspense is too much. By the way, LexisNexis also has released a few things. So there are a few different research assistants, but yeah, Harvey's suspense is too much. I can't wait.
Yeah, my apologies. Lexis AI actually scored quite well, relatively speaking, on the Stanford study. So Lexis AI is a great assistant as well for doing legal research. Those are the ones where they're tied to, obviously with Lexis and obviously with CoCounsel now with its acquisition by Thomson Reuters, to some amazing databases of legal information research. So again, what did I say earlier? Like, it's all about the context. It's all about the data that it has access to, right? So if it has access to a reliable source of good quality data, good quality in, good quality out, you're much more likely to get a good answer. So with those legal assistants, they've really raised the bar, increased the game. They've made things a lot easier to do legal research, but they still require you to check. The Schwartz case that happened, which is the one where there were all these hallucinated cases that he filed immediately with the federal court without looking at them. Again, that's the error of the mindset. It's the error of having the oracle mindset if you had a mindset that AI is actually a collaborator, it's like a colleague that works with you, but you still want to trust but verify, that mindset will keep you out of trouble. So be careful how you approach these tools.
Yeah. Your reference to oracles gives me a very odd Web3 vibe. I'm not sure I'm ready for it. It does have a meaning in this world, and I think you're kind of using it in the same type of way of verifying the external fact. That and to the extent you're using it in this way, I mean, remember the training data is not really real time too. So there is also a lag in that as well. I think that is a sense in which you're using it. Am I misinterpreting, or there's more to the way you use the word that was meant, in the good old days, in the ancient days for something else, have been borrowed throughout modern times, including Web3, as slightly different terms, and you're now using it in an, I think, similar way in the context of AI, which I think is the right word to use, but just understand that it may be a loaded term.
Yeah, it's meant to be a little bit loaded because, an oracle, back in ancient times, you would consult with an oracle to give you insight and advice about what to do next and when were auspicious times to do things. And so that overlay of kind of like a magical kind of sense is
Oh, you are
intentional.
using it in the magical sense.
Yeah, because I think, yeah, because sometimes the people, when they have that mindset, are thinking of it as magic. And this actually ties into something else that's been happening because a couple of the conferences I've been to lately, Future Law in Talon and just recently Legal Innovators California, um, it's been interesting because the panel that I moderated at Future Law and one here was talking about AI 1.5 years later, like how things have changed. And I think the change in mindset has definitely happened where we've transitioned from the honeymoon magical phase of AI to now a much more pragmatic, authentic relationship with AI type of phase where we're working through the practicality of it, of the practicality of living with it. So yeah, the intention, it was intentional about kind of like the magical thinking of it as an oracle, and that we shouldn't do
Interesting.
that.
Yeah, I honestly think it's super magical. I Yesterday or the day before, it had downtime. I built a few GPTs and incorporated experiment in my life with it, my professional and personal life. My life is very much improved and much more magical because of it. And I felt the downtime. I was very much Googling, what's happening all over the world and how it's improving. And then, it basically became a highlight of my day. So I am still very much in the honeymoon stage of life when it comes to me and my LLMs. It's all magic and unicorns and I'm like thoroughly enjoying it and really intend to have this magical relationship for a long time. Please do not take this magical relationship that really makes my day every time. I mean, I felt a sense of profound loss. It was like I looked back and I started Googling how many days does the average person have on a planet Earth. And then I realized that, it's a big chunk of my life that I sort of wasted looking for this thing to come back to life. And I really wish that it doesn't. I'm being dramatic, obviously, but I definitely noticed in the sense of loss, and how much more menial and less exciting and more administrative my life has become and how much it slowed me down, not being able to take advantage of all the GPTs that I've built to streamline just, like like everything in my life. So yeah, the magic is still there for me a year and a half later, just to be very clear.
No, I get it. Especially yesterday, I think it was, there was the OpenAI outage, and it also affected, I think, Anthropic and Perplexity because it's built on top of OpenAI, I believe, as well as some other models. And yeah, I was trying to use it and got this, server not responding. So
Yeah,
it is a little weird.
it's like the worst thing. It's worse than 401 error, the server not responding. It's really an eerie feeling for me. Again, dramatically, but really has a lot of truth in it.
Yeah, it's extremely useful. And I think the way we so quickly have incorporated it into what we do really speaks to how profound a change and the value that it's given us.
Yeah. Coming to the end, I maybe have a few more questions. Um, and maybe we can kind of answer them briefly. One is that what is sort of top strategies? What are the one or two or three things I, as a lawyer, solo or small practice, can do today to work smarter and not harder, to bring magic into my life?
Yeah, and that ties in interestingly to our tagline at LawDroid is work smarter with LawDroid. But the suggestions I would have are number one, remain curious. Extremely important. It is a superpower to remain curious, and my friend Kat Moon is a big proponent of that because it gives you the space to explore, learn more, and experiment with these tools. See what they could do, see what their limitations are, but definitely play around with them because they're going to be a critical part of our lives.
Love it. And so you mentioned LawDroid. Maybe I'll ask you more specifically. What is sort of unique value propositions of the baby?
I think the unique value proposition of LawDroid is that we make AI easy and intuitive to use. There are a lot of worries about having to become a prompt engineer. There's a lot of worries about it being too complicated or unapproachable. We have a university with multiple courses to teach you how to use AI and about the concepts of how it works and how to be ethically compliant in using it, as well as the UI of our software is extremely easy to use. If you've ever played around with Canva and enjoyed photo editing because of it, because Photoshop is a nightmare, but Canva's drag and drop easy, we're like the Canva for AI. We make it easy to use.
I love it. By the way, I love both Photoshop and Canva, and Canva definitely improved that relationship with visuals for most people. It's much more democratic experience with a much smaller learning curve. So I love that comparison. Um, Last question. No tool is a universal tool. And I do see propensity with something like Gen AI, basically, using a chopstick for a soup, or a fork for a spoon, and then because now I'm thinking, yeah, some of my friends use it for a soup, and that actually doesn't work so bad with other tools. But anyway, not all tools are meant for everything in life. Do you think that perhaps we should also teach folks use cases and appropriate use of Gen AI? And if so, kind of what are the use cases for the appropriate use?
So one reason to check out my 5-hour, 5-part course on the use of AI, including bunches of use cases on LawDroid University. But yeah, the use cases definitely matter. Gen AI isn't perfect for everything. In fact, there's still a lot of use for just good old-fashioned tools like document automation that is just based on conditional logic. But there's also just great uses for just people. You still want to have the one-to-one meetings with clients and forge that relationship and deepen your connections with other people. So you need to learn where each one fits in. And it's a matter of gaining experience and experimentation and remaining curious. But
So
there's definitely a place for everything.
You now mentioned university a few times. How can people find it? Where is it?
Yeah, it's at lawdroid.com. It's one of the tabs, Lawdroid University. It is free, by the way. I'm not charging anything for it. I honestly just want to get the word out to people so they better understand these tools. And I also have a 6-part, so like an even longer um, course that I'm teaching through National Business Institute that's coming out at the end of June. But yeah, I enjoy spreading the word and teaching people about the value of AI.
I love that. So if this 40 or so minutes inspired you to be curious, go check out the 5 hours of Tom. And if that's not going to be enough, 6 more are coming. So Tom is going to be present in your life in however many ways you welcome him to be. And thank you, Tom, for sharing all of those resources. And thank you so much for being on the show. We covered a lot of ground and a lot of topics. As I said, my favorite phrase is ability to recover from strange questions. I've never heard anyone describe LLMs this way. I think it's a very good way, an accurate way to describe it. What is one takeaway you want folks to take from this conversation?
I think the takeaway is to keep an open mind and to explore. Don't close your mind off to what's possible with generative AI. Um, there's really so much that it could do. And one last thing I would want to throw in there is that we do have a pretty amazing YouTube channel with tons of videos that educate as well as explore different legal innovators and uses of Gen AI. So check out our YouTube channel too.
I love that. Well, thank you. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for this fantastic conversation. Thank you for sharing all the resources, your newsletter, your university, more courses coming, and the YouTube channel. I know folks ask me all the time, where can they get reliable information, not just about Gen AI, but applications in law. And definitely this is one place to go to get a lot of useful information. So thank you for that service to the community. Thank you for being on the show. I am so excited that I had a chance to spend time with you in person in Tallinn and then now have a virtual conversation. So I think my life has improved with more Tom in my life, and I know that it will be the same for other folks who will use your educational resources. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for stopping by. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Notes to My Legal Self. The future belongs to builders. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They're an act of courage. Keep in mind, the future of law is all lit up. Let's roll up our sleeves, innovate, build, and change the world of law together. See you soon.